I am. Yeah.
Nice.
Sweet.
Oh, it's being recorded. Oh no.
Is it nice and warm down there?
Oh, it's beautiful. Yeah.
Yeah. I miss
Uh,
that lifestyle.
okay, here we go. We're getting the echo. We're live. Okay, I'm gonna go ahead and switch the view and fire this bad boy up. Stoked to have you back on, Marjory. We had a great time in Mexico, and yeah, you are bringing so much knowledge and wisdom to the world and where we need it most. So we're gonna go into that today. Here we go. And boom, we're back for another episode of Alfacast. I'm Mike Winter, and I'm here as always with my partner in goodness, not crime, Dr.
I
Barrett
was
Paul
thinking
Lando.
crime, but go for it.
Depends on your perspective, I guess, where you're coming from. Up here in the great state of Jefferson, where freedom still reigns supreme. We had a little tease of spring, and winter's back upon us for a quick second, even though it's a lot warmer. But we've got, I was just looking at the forecast. It's like rain, 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 rain. But at least it's warmer, huh, Bear?
Typical spring, they kind of tease us a few times, and yeah, it's warmer. So at least we're not freezing, even though it's wet. A little bit, kind of like where you live, Marjorie, where it can be wet but warm at the same time.
Yeah. Well, after spending 2 decades homesteading in deserts, um, I never complain about rain at all, ever.
Exactly.
I am so grateful for every drop, even when it's like 90 inches or something crazy, which happens. But yeah.
I
Oh
hear you.
man, yeah, nothing more precious than nature's abundant flow of water. As we're going to be going into gardening and homesteading and food production today, that's pretty important. Pretty important part.
Getting more important every day.
Oh yeah. I've been doing some more deep dives into water, and yeah, it's the idea of it being structured and truly coming from the full spectrum resonance of nature versus out of your garden hose from the city municipal water. It's just such a massive difference, even way beyond chlorinated and fluoride and all that, the chemical constituents. We're talking about the energetics of it. So maybe we can touch on that a bit today. We're excited to have you guys on with us today. Definitely go check out all the new offerings at alfavedic.com, alfavedic.com. We've got tons of new product that are coming out every day, it seems like, and very excited to share that with you. Anything else, Bear, before we jump into this wonderful
No, I want
discussion
to
with
talk to
Marjory?
Marjorie here.
Do it. Well, I jokingly I kind of like put this as the title because it is ridiculous, countering the egg apocalypse with Marjory Wildcraft today, because we will be getting into that as a solution and how really everybody should be raising their own chickens. But also, of course, it's just insane times that in
I'm
California.
I don't know if I like the replenishing of the chickens. As you know, we have quite a lucrative business going selling our eggs in this day of chicken shortages. We made a little spoof video about that. So anyway, just joking. Yeah,
Oh my
everybody
God.
needs birds. Sorry to interrupt, Mike.
Even the cheapy eggs, like the ones you really don't want to eat anyway, are like $10 a dozen. Somebody sent me a video where they're faking eggs. Like the Chinese have figured out how to fake everything. There's fake rice and there's all kinds of stuff that they fake, and fake food is a thing, and they're now faking eggs.
What's great about your own chickens too is, compost from the kitchen, everything. They just eat everything. It's a great recycling mechanism. Then we use their poop in the garden and, all that
The
good stuff
city,
you know
the
about.
city of Austin, so 30 years ago, if you had chickens in your backyard, you were considered, everybody hated you because you were lowering property values with your little Bubbaville. But now the city of Austin, everything has completely changed. And I'm glad to say I played a small part in that movement. And the city of Austin now has free classes on backyard chickens, and they will subsidize coops and help you. And I was like, wow, is this like out of the the Magnus of their hearts or what? And it was no. They found that chicken owners have 30% less waste. And so the landfill savings is huge for a city. And so it made sense for them to, support and encourage chicken ownership, backyard chicken ownership in the
I've
city.
also I've also read that chicken owners have, on the average, 10-point higher IQs than the rest of the population.
Oh, that may be.
Mike, you better take it over here.
Well, we're going to dive deeper into this. I was just saying hi to some of the chat. Guys, we do go live every Thursday at 10 a.m. on LooshTube and Odyssey, and No Longer Unite. Sayer G's Unite, unfortunately, is unfolding, which is a bummer.
I saw that.
Yeah. Are you buddies with Sayer?
Not, I mean, we've done business together over the years and hung out.
Yeah.
I was on his platform for a minute, but I was really, he put a lot into that. He put a lot into it. So
Yeah. And this is why I'm an advocate for decentralization. It's so hard to buck, the loose tubes and the fake books out there, because it takes so much resources to manage those centralized servers, where something like Chordal or Odyssey even can just keep plugging away because of decentralization, So we are on Odyssey. You guys can stream us there. And of course, we're on Rumble as well. Love you guys. Thanks for joining us today. So we are delighted to have Marjory return to Alfacast, your second time coming on the show, for a timely roundtable discussion about all that sustains us. We're going to delve deeper into the escalating war being waged against food supplies and purposeful adulteration to decrease necessary nutrient density, while introducing biotoxins that wreak havoc as anti-metabolites. Oh, doesn't that sound fun? We're going to touch on some controversial subjects as well. You brought up, Marjory, including some insights concerning what we may or may not expect from MAHA. Marjory will present her innovative soil solutions to counter cumulative and destructive effects of the contaminants relentlessly raining down upon us, within and without. This episode dovetails perfectly with the onset of spring planting here. Happy New Year's, guys. At Alfa Vedic Gardens, and the development of our sister channel, Off-Grid Elegance. We'll focus today on topics relative to the self-sustainable lifestyle, planting tips, the propagation of native species, how to attract pollinators, and visits to Dr. Lando's Spagyrics lab, where our farm products become medicine. And we will, for our executive co-op members, I announced it yesterday, we are doing a farm tour that's for members only. And for current members only. So check us out online. We've got a great private membership group there at alfavedic.com/join-us. But we do already have a few episodes in the can on that, and interviews with other gardening notables scheduled. So stay tuned. So Marjory, this is very close to our heart. Marjory is the female leader of the survival and preparedness movement. She's been in this for days, total legend. 2009, she founded the Grow Network, which is a community of people focused on modern self-sufficient living. She has been featured by National Geographic as an expert in off-grid living. She hosted the Mother Earth News Online Homesteading Summit, and she is listed in Who's Who in America for having inspired hundreds of thousands of backyard farmers. Marjory was the focus of an article that won Reuters Food Sustainable Media Award, and she recently authored The Grow System, the essential guide to modern self-sufficient living, from growing food to making medicine. So great to be with you today, Marjory. And Bear Lando, please take it away, my friend.
Yeah, Marjory, so great to have you back. Thank you for making time with us. You're one of those intrepid souls, pioneers of the back to the land, homesteading, whatever we want to call it, personal sovereignty folks. So you've done such great things over the years, and we thank you for that. Deb and I had our first off-grid homestead in 1976, and we've been going through different versions of that ever since. And just now kind of getting out and talking about it a little bit more. But it's so important, and I think a lot of folks are maybe a little bit complacent now. Mike and I are more apolitical voluntarists, but a lot of the, folks that have good values, maybe a little bit more on the conservative side, are thinking that it's game done now since the Dawn is in business. But I think we have a long ways to go. And maybe folks like yourself have a lot more to teach people, essential skills that Perhaps a developer from Manhattan, really doesn't have a knack for. So it's really up to us to rebuild this country. This country was originally founded by farmers.
Hmm.
And Deb and I actually are going to have a guest already scheduled on our other podcast of a woman from Great Britain, no less, who wrote a book about the founding of our country based on farming and agriculture. So it's really where we need to return. I think we can do it even better and with more ease. And, people can duplicate their own little homestead like our good folks at the Anastasia Foundation are doing, teaching people how to do small plots of land. So that's true decentralization, because we found
is.
that, or witness right now, that all they need is some bureaucrat to make up some fake story about a virus and then kill all the birds. And now you're, like we're saying, paying atrocious prices for eggs. So why don't we start out? We had a great conversation last time. Maybe if you could fill us in where we left off and what you've been doing since then, and maybe some of your new projects,
Oh my
that would be
gosh, yeah.
wonderful. So thanks
We're,
again for being with us.
yeah, well, we're living, I mean, it's 90 miles an hour these days. And yeah, I got a lot of great projects going on. Um, I think one of the most exciting one, and Mike was talking about it, we might talk about it at the end, but I could probably bring it forward now because it's so exciting. And I got involved with a group, Jim Gale, who has the Food Forest Abundance thing, is organizing this group. We were calling it the Earth Council, and he had
Jim's a
12,
good friend.
yeah, group of 12 that he selected. And we've ended up having to change that name because apparently Bill Clinton owns the trademark on it or something. But so this Earth Council came together, and
That's a group of 9, the Council of 9, but go ahead.
anyway, yeah, I don't know. Anyway, there were these guys on the group, and I didn't hardly know. I mean, Joel Salatin, of course, he and I go back for years, and I knew him, and I knew some of the others. There was a bunch I'd never heard of, and I thought, what are they here for, And there were these 2 guys that were really representing one slot that had this stuff. They're walking around with a backpack sprayer, and they're going, yeah, well, we can destroy, glyphosate, forever chemicals, and we can turn heavy metals into essential fatty acids, and we got this thing, and I'm like, yeah, yeah, you go, yeah. But they kept showing up, right? And they're like, and Jim's putting a bunch of faith into, and I'm like, okay, well, if they really have that, that's something we absolutely need. Because I teach people grow your own food, and everybody's always like, well, Marjorie, what do I do about the chemtrails, or what do I do about the ag spray, or all the other, they're selling biosludge. You don't know if you got biosludge. Like most of the soil in the United States now is toxic in one way or another. And I didn't have a lot of a good answer for that, other than, the commercial food's grown in that, but you growing your own, it's going to be better, But so anyway, I built a yeah, I built a garden bed and did some tests, and it was like, lo and behold, and I said, well, I'll just start with the forever chemicals first, because I didn't believe that, right? They're forever, right? And the data came back, and it was like, oh my God, we destroyed forever chemicals, and there were 7 that were detected in significant amounts, and I had to cut the test short to 2 months instead of the 4 months that I wanted to run it, and the other 5 were reduced significantly, anywhere from 10 to 85%. This also it's it's a natural thing. It's minerals and microbes. It's not anything, nothing synthetic at all. And these guys have just been spending decades. Actually, this is work that has been going on since the 1950s, that has been handed down and refined, and it just blew me away. So I've been doing more tests, and then I've been talking about it and putting up videos and showing everything that I'm doing. And now I have, there's at least one national laboratory now that is duplicating all the results. They're running a test of 20 pots, and actually that should be coming in here pretty soon, in a couple of weeks. There's some other homesteaders who have said, okay, I'll take the challenge and duplicate it. And there, a guy in North Carolina, some other places. I am like just really, really stoked about this. project. So we're calling it the soil detox kit. And basically, I think it's like $400 or $500. And for a quarter acre size lot, which is what most of my community focuses. I mean, you grow a lot of food in a quarter acre, right? This would be 20 applications, which would completely detoxify your soil. And then it has 90 plus minerals. So, I mean, we're talking about feeding and detoxing your soil in one product for just a very small amount of money. So,
Yeah,
I am so,
absolutely, absolutely necessary. And we've
yeah.
noticed on our farm here, we're out in a wilderness area, way
Mhm.
away from civilization, but we still got drift from the chemtrails that comes down. And the years we've been here, we've absolutely noticed certain things happening to our plants and soil contamination. And what we do is we keep introducing abundant microbes. We have a
Mhm.
vortex brewer, and we're always making microbes and putting them in there because, in bioterrain medicine, we have indigenous microbes, and they go through different mutations in order to become scavengers and gobble up all the stuff that your body doesn't want or need. And it's the same thing in the soil. So
Yeah.
it's good to hear you guys are really keying in on the microbial component because, yeah, they're the ones that make our whole realm inside and out thrive.
They were like, "Hey, Marjorie, we know you've got a background in real estate. So, before I had the wake up call to start teaching people to grow food, I made my first million before I was 40, and I was doing it in real estate and having a great time. And they said, "Hey, what we want to do is there is all kinds of just hugely toxic land that the government has that they will give it to you or sell it to you for pennies on the dollar. And we're looking at doing a big project, hundreds or thousands of acres, and then treating it. And like in you know, one season, basically they could take this totally toxic land and turn it into rich, fertile agricultural land." And they're like, would you want to get in on this?" And I'm like, that sounds like such a wonderful project, but I've kind of got my thing here of teaching people backyard food production, and that's a distraction, right? So, yeah.
Yeah, if the soil's toxic, though, it's going to affect your backyard food production. So, really a
Well,
necessary thing.
I get it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Is that me or you or somebody ringing or um
It might be you. I don't hear anything.
oh, okay, good.
I was just at an event in North Carolina with a bunch of badass farmers, and Billy Bond, do you know him from Permapastures?
No, I don't know
Out in
this
North
one. No.
Carolina.
Uh-huh.
Well, they were obviously all affected by Hurricane Helene, and he was starting to see some alarm bells around the soil, um, quality after that disaster. And so he was checking in on the local testing done by other agencies, and he was saying, this doesn't add up. So he's actually crowdfunded to do testing himself and found quite alarming rates of toxins, all sorts of different toxins in the soil along the rivers, especially where the storm had come through. Now, a lot of that could be obviously waste coming from, structures and stuff, but it's so alarming. They're starting to wonder what they're using here to, push these storms through. And there's all sorts of interesting questions coming out of that. But solutions wise, because he's a big permaculturist, his son went and actually trained with Jeff Lawton in
Mhm.
Australia. And he's been really influenced by obviously the origins of permaculture coming out of Australia. So they're doing bioremediation, mycoremediation, and another remediation. And he's actually coming on the show. We did book him. Billy's coming on the show in about a month and a half, I think, to go over all this with us. But I just bring this up because the solution is nature herself, right?
Exactly.
And
Yeah.
that's we mentioned Joel Salatin. He's got a clip going viral right now from an old Rogan interview where he's talking about chickens and how by just having your own chickens and letting them go free range, and then versus the factory farming. So he's talking about decentralization.
Yeah.
You then can get rid of the corn to feed the chickens. Instead of having the corn, you have pastures. You put the cows on the pastures like we used to have the bison. Now you have the cows that are regenerating those pastures with their own poop, right? And now instead of annuals, you're getting perennials, which now feed the soil system. And now all of a sudden you have a natural ecosystem that is self-regenerative and abundant,
And
just
that's
by decentralizing chicken production.
and that's classic Rudolf Steiner biodynamics.
Yeah.
Yeah, beautiful. You know, Patricia Foreman, another lovely older woman who Joel and Patricia and I used to hang out together all the time on the Mother Earth News Fair circuits. And
Nice.
actually both Joel and I have been kicked out of the Mother Earth News world, but anyway, for various reasons.
Is that because they went all like woke and
Oh, they're
Probably.
amazingly woke. I
Yeah.
can't even read their
Yeah.
publication. We get Grit magazine now instead of Mother Earth.
It's
Sorry,
owned
go
by the
ahead.
same company anyway. But
Oh, is
Patricia
it?
wrote this. Yeah,
Yeah.
she wrote this wonderful book called City Chicks. And she was going, if 1 in every 3 families had a small backyard flock of laying hens, we would no longer need an egg industry. You know, certainly not for retail use of eggs. We'd need it maybe for maybe the wholesale stuff where people are baking bread and that kind of thing. We could completely eliminate the egg industry. 1 in 3 families having and I totally get it. I mean, you get a dozen chicken, laying hens, you got a dozen eggs every day. You can't eat that much. You share it with a couple of neighbors. So, yeah. Oh, to go back to the toxicity, I mean, we really are. Now, I absolutely envision that we can completely change this, especially since dealing with this minerals and microbes product that we have with the soil detox, that we can absolutely completely, I used to be pretty hopeless about it, but we can absolutely completely heal this planet. And one of the things another vector for this is every municipality in the United States, when you flush the toilet, where does it go? So the biosolids, they call it a composting process. It's terrible. They bag it up in those 40-quart bags and they sell it to people. It's often labeled as organic. I think these biosolid products are certified and listed as an OMRI, O-M-R-I, the organic materials standards, as OMRI safe. They sell it by the truckload to different farmers, and they say, hey, this is organic. I know personally many organic farmers that believe they're farming organically because this stuff, and the EPA completely certifies it as safe, even though the EPA itself knows in the 2000 study and then the 2016 study, they had 94 municipalities that they tested, and 100% of them had huge levels of PFAS in it. So they know it's toxic.
Well, how about just all the recycled pharmaceuticals and everything that are going through people's bodies?
Everything that you see flushed down in a toilet. So the pharmaceuticals, that old cleaner that your Aunt Martha doesn't want anymore and she dumped down, all the hospital wastes or light industry, everything that gets put in the sewage system. It's horrible stuff. Now, I will have to say, so I intentionally started buying bags of this. I affectionately call it shit soil. Here it's, and like in Austin, it's called Dillo dirt and malagranite, and I forget what the name is for you guys in your region there, and organicite or something. They have these really nice holistic sounding names to them. And here it's called Majestic Garden Soil. And when I first heard about it, I was so excited. I read every word on the package, right? And no indication. When I opened that bag and smelled it, I was like, it doesn't smell like human feces, although every now and then they screw up their processing and it does, but most of the time it doesn't. It just smells terrible. And I have to say though, after, even just a couple of months of applying this minerals and microbes to it, it turns into the most rich, vibrant, alive soil that you can imagine. It really transforms it, whatever those microbes are doing and those minerals. The kit comes with like 7 different components, and some of it's the food for the microbes and different kinds of, I think there's like 1,000 different microbes in there. It's credible. I want to learn more. It's you probably know a lot more about this bear than I do with the bioterrain, and the way these guys are explaining it is, yeah, these guys, whatever environment they're in, when you wake them up, the microbes, they start going to work on those problems, and they fix the soil. I have not yet tested the destruction of the heavy metals. That's another test that I'm going to be orchestrating here soon. Right now, I'm running another test on PFAS, and I'm running a test on glyphosate. And then the next one I'm just about to do is again going to be more PFAS testing, and then what is it, picloram and some of those other terrible broadleaf pesticides that are really horrible. We're going to see if we can I'm really confident they will, but before I say anything, I want to do my own
I'm pretty
testing.
convinced they will. And I'm so glad you're doing that because we really need a product just for the regular suburban farmer or small farmer. The way we do it here with this Vortex brewer, you know, it's a commercial level kind of machine and it's very expensive. So it's not, you know, the average person isn't going to buy one for their backyard. And so if you have a product that can do that, that's fantastic. You know, just another, just before we close up the whole chicken thing, uh, I want to add another dimension to that. You know, we have our flock of birds and they have a huge area they get to run around and everything, but they're like our pets. You know, they come running to us and you pick them up. And, you know, when we get
Oh,
new
yeah.
chicks, they're up in our bedroom and the bathroom until they,
Oh
you
my
know, in the
gosh.
bathtub, you know, until they get old enough to put outside with the big birds. And you know, they're sentient beings. You know, chickens, they have their own personalities, but you know, they aren't dumb. They feel and you know, they're real living creatures. And when you have your own flock of birds and have that kind of relationship, just to think of these factory birds that are just literally tortured and maimed, and I mean, it's
Mhm.
just it's really cruel. It really is cruel. It's like the difference between raising animals, you know, the way Joe does, you know, in a humane way versus these big factory, you know,
Yeah. Well,
kind
imagine
of
the karma
Holocaust farms.
of eating that stuff, you know, I mean,
Yeah,
putting
Ugh.
that
yeah,
into your body, the energetics of an egg from that system
yeah.
is just,
And
I
this
Yeah.
have,
other stuff,
yeah.
I was just gonna say this other stuff that you know, you're talking about that comes from municipal waste. You know, of course, they get a twofer out of the thing because now they just take that water treatment sludge and recycle it for drinking water, throw a little chlorine in it, and you're good to go.
Exactly. But the
Yeah,
really good news is, you know, we do have these protocols and there are other people that are working on this at a larger scale. And so you can take that same biosludge and just get the city to, you know, spend 2 months with this extra composting step, you know, and
Yeah.
yeah, it's incredible. I
Well,
do have
I
one
do
other,
want to
oh, go
I
ahead.
do want to break these two topics up because I think we can go deep into both of these and they're pretty important. In terms of the chickens too, on the qualitative side of your eggs, of course, like we can't discount the albumin being obviously structured there. Veda Austin has done some great work showing the frequency and resonance within the egg whites themselves, the albumin within the egg, and how her interesting study of a free range love chicken egg where she freezes that albumin and sees the crystalline nature of it versus a factory farm egg that is chaotic in terms of the frozen
Mhm.
structure of that. So there's like that water, you know, the cymatics of that is just showing the consciousness within that, or however you want to represent that. But then what's interesting is her study shows when she takes the egg of the free range and puts it within the dozen of the factory farm and lets them just resonate next to each other, the waters of the polarity of the free range egg actually overtakes the distortion and resonates in a way where it starts to make the eggs that are from you know, the factory farm change in structure to be more crystalline, which shows that nature inherently aims to be structured, right? And that the distortions come from man's ignorance.
Oh, that's
So I
beautiful. Yeah, that's like that
yes,
Analema water wand with, I don't know if you guys have ever seen that product, but I use
yeah,
it when I
yeah.
travel and it's the structured water in this very thin crystal and you can, you know,
yeah, that's
structure
an
your,
interesting one. Is covalent bonds, I think, or something, or coherency is it's working on. We've been actually asked Bear from Tom Cowan actually knows the guy to bring him on and the creator of that and to come on the show, which would be interesting. But just to finish you know, my idea here is what Bear was saying about like we have the same thing with our chickens. Like our chickens are our pets. We actually named them all after 90s pop stars. So like our Silky, literally our blonde Silky is a dumb blonde Britney Spears.
oh,
And you know, and then our copper Morans are like Missy Elliott and because they're big blackbirds and Queen Latifah. And I was actually thinking
fun.
about trying to get a little bit more, even more like chickeny with those names, you know, the next go around and like have some puns with those names.
Oh my
But
God, you can have so
they
many great jokes, and especially when you start talking about roosters and cocks and things, it goes.
oh yeah.
Patricia Foreman does really well in her book, by the way. It's just like one joke after another. It's great.
So they each
Yeah,
have their own personality, and we can know
yeah.
which egg is laid by which one from that personality. And then when we're cooking with that egg, I'm like, oh, I've got a dumb blonde egg here. But there's a connection there that, like
Yeah.
Bear mentioned Anastasia when we opened up the Ringing Cedars, and like I don't know if you're familiar with those books, this Russian mystic,
Hmm.
Anastasia, she
Yeah.
really brings home the qualitative elements of of our relation with nature. Like you put the seeds in your mouth to bring
Hmm.
your essence into the seed before you propagate them. Well, same with these chickens, right? And so, guys, that's why I think it's just so great to have your own chickens and raise them up and have that connection with them. Teach your kids to go out, clean the coop, get the eggs, etc. So my question here is, this is what we've been running into because your chickens get old and you need new chickens, and we don't
Hmm.
deal with roosters right now, and probably want to maybe just talk about breeding if
Yeah.
you want to get into that, because I know Joel Salatin's really into that right now and breeding really robust, hardy chickens for your area, specifically geared towards your area where you live. So one kind of questions around that, but then two, something that we've been running into is now it's really hard to get chicks. It's actually really hard because of the what they've done to the eggs. Um, in terms of how hard it is to get the eggs. Now people are all running to raise chickens, which is great. And now it's actually getting hard to get chicks.
Yeah,
So
they're
what's the solution
vaccinating them.
there?
Yeah, it's crazy. So yeah, but do your best to get some, and then they will do it. I mean, I've raised a bunch of them, and those hens want to sit on eggs, and that's why they're laying eggs, is they're trying to reproduce. So um yeah, and it's just going to get worse. I mean, the get I don't know if you remember in like 2020, you couldn't buy a laying hen anywhere. Um because a chicken was a very precious item, which it should be, right? By the way, talking about Joel, I hung out with Joel a lot at this last thing in Acapulco. It was so fun. And I said, what's really working on the farm right now? He says, well, we've been breeding this everybody's always wanting the perfect variety of chicken breed, which is a good thing. I mean, you really should be doing that. And he said, and we've been working on this one line for like 10 years or something. He says, and we're selling out. And I said, oh, you're counting your chickens before they hatch? He said, yeah, we're selling our chickens before they hatch. He said, it's funny. If you're bringing forward the carrot, and I would like to mention the stick, because we um, in 1922, and now so a lot of patterns repeat in our history because this planet has been managed by the same people and they use the same patterns, right? So um, uh, in 1922 in Weimar, Germany, in January, people were complaining because a dozen eggs cost 3 marks. It had gone up 300% in the past like 2 years or so, and people were grumping about it. By October of that year, it cost 1 billion marks to buy a dozen eggs. So when it happens, and those people did not have smartphones or internet or anything like that. So when it happens very, very, very quickly, right? And I can promise you that a laying hen would, it's unobtainable, right? As are eggs. Now, are we on that? Is it just an isolated thing that they've destroyed the egg industry intentionally? And that's just an isolated thing, or are we looking at a broader thing? So first of all, you should be getting your own eggs and your own chickens now because you can, and it's healthy, and that's what you're supposed to be doing. I found a lot of people don't respond to that. So I'm going to tell you now, you should do it because you might not get to eat eggs. People respond to crises. So I'm watching the prices of groceries very closely because when it does start to go, it goes really, really fast. And in our day and age, I think it could go even more quickly. So, um, preparedness is is a hugely important thing.
Yeah, extremely important. And there's no coincidences. This is just plain out warfare. And
Yeah.
traditionally, you create fire, you burn people out, and you also starve them. You destroy their food supply. So, you can't convince me this isn't anything but purposeful. Um,
And we have a lot of evidence. I mean, they've been doing this for a lot, like last year, apparently
yeah.
the Idaho farmers, 500,000 acres of potato farming, they were going to pull the water from those, and they did for about a week, from those guys so that the water could go to a data center for Meta. And apparently that's like raising, there was such a flack to it that they pulled it back. But I'm watching Yanasa TV, that guy, he's pretty on it. And he's like, no,
Oh
they're
yeah.
starting it up again. And well, you guys in Oregon there, right? They were going to shut you down if you had a cow because it was a confined housing operation. In Maine, they gave those farmers the biosludge and said this is organic compost. And then a couple of years later, they came back, tested their soil, said you have forever chemicals in it, and condemned the farms. I think they're just playing around with which thing is the
Modality.
what modality is the easiest way to kill off all.
And
you
in
know. Yeah.
Idaho and eastern Oregon, they're curtailing farmers' ability to irrigate. Which brings us to another important thing. What Deb and I do a lot, we entertain questions because a lot of people are looking for land in order to be more self-sufficient. You have an interesting background in real estate and self-sufficiency. And, we tell people, well, the first thing you do is look for a place with water. Our water here comes subterranean, up through this fork of the river that we're on, and then there's springs everywhere. So we're actually using primal water here. We're just lucky. There's not too many places like this that are available, but definitely, what would you tell people as far as, just to make sure that they have an abundance of water? It comes from different sources. So
I absolutely agree with you. And I recommend you have at least 3 sources of water. So, rainwater collection is a no-brainer. You can do that very easily, right? Dig a well.
I was
if
going to
you-
say, Marjorie, though, like in California here and in Oregon and places there, the state is trying to, of course, make that illegal. So you're not allowed to capture rain because it's taking the water away from,
I learned this from a Native American one time that was telling me one time that the venison you get that's illegal tastes better.
Right?
That's absolutely ridiculous, and I honestly don't know how long these governments have to be honest with you, really.
No, they're
So-
showing their despair right now and just becoming more transparent in the process. But the final days as they're lashing out and trying to maintain controls when they're the most dangerous. So I think everything you're teaching is more valuable now than ever, actually.
Yeah.
And sorry, didn't mean to
Yeah.
interrupt. So you were saying the one way, of course, is rainwater catchment.
Rainwater is a good one. And then if it's at all possible to drill a well. And again, here in Puerto Rico, it's like, I would guess that only about 10% of the wells are licensed here. Like nobody's wanting to deal with that governmental issue. So there's that. There's a lot you can do just with, if you've got slopes and terracing and capturing the water naturally on the land with earthworks. And of course, digging ponds as a way to collect it. And if you can't dig a pond, just those old fashioned pools, those those kid pools that are, 3 feet high and 15 feet in diameter or whatever. Yeah. And then of course, any kind of natural water you can get is wonderful if you can get spring water or be living near a river or, yeah. Water is absolutely vital. Yeah, like I said, I've homesteaded in desert areas for 2 decades, and I have such an appreciation for every drop of water in this realm. It's, it's important. The other thing, I think a lot of people go, hey, Marjorie, look at this land. And I'm like, land is important. You got to have land. And actually, you don't need nearly as much as, we all want more land, right? I don't know what it is about that, but I get the same way. Like, oh, geez, 10, no, 1, 8, no, 5, 2, no, let's go for 20. My ex-husband and I, when we were buying a property, he says it has to be bigger than 15. And I'm like, why is that? And he said, well, that's what I had with my other ex. So I'm like, okay, if there's a reason, why not? But community actually is probably, it's more important than the land. Being in a community of people that you resonate with, if that land is wonderful and you're a Mormon, but the community is Baptist, that's pretty gross, but it's that happens, right? You know, I've had some people that were real, what you would call them hippies, and ended up in the Southeast in the Ozarks, and the Ozarks are fantastic, but they were in a community that was, you know, very, very hardcore Christian, and it just, you know, it didn't work for them, right? So your community, and because we are tribal in nature, and really the joy in life comes from your interactions with other human beings, you know, and the biggest myth in the survival and preparedness space is that of the lone survivor. Yeah. So yeah, but and then when you do find that piece of property, water, don't buy a piece of property without some way to, 3 ways to have water, as it is just, you just can't grow. I live here in the tropics, and one way I count on water is just rainwater, but even still, it's, you know, we have a dry season, right? So um but water is just so vital. If
And
it's
if
at
your
all,
land isn't completely flat, a nice southern exposure is nice.
yeah, actually, it's just opposite here. Much rather have a northern exposure, so it's a
Oh,
little
right.
cooler. Yeah, yeah.
Different area,
You
right.
know, that's the wonderful thing about having lived and homesteaded
Mm.
and farmed or gardened in so many different bioregions. It's really helped me to
Yeah,
look at different perspectives.
that's
I
so
love that.
true. Yeah,
I
we
love it.
we had a big operation in the islands for many years, and growing in the tropics is a totally different game compared to here in the Pacific Northwest.
The plant growth rate here, like we grow all kinds of trees knowing we're just going to cut them down in 6 months or a year, and they're just for compost. And it's just astonishing. I love it. Anyway, yeah,
You are making me a bit envious, I'm sure, on the tropical fruit vibes over there.
for sure. Yeah, for sure. You know, I moved here primarily because chocolate grows here. Like everybody said, "Oh, is it the tax incentives?" I've said, "Nah, not really. I don't really make that much money." Um, you know, I do want to learn Spanish. It's a terrible, Puerto Rico's terrible. The Puerto Ricans talk, so it's not a good place to learn Spanish, you know. Salsa dancing, men love to dance. And people that they're proud to dance here. That's a wonderful aspect of it. But I moved here primarily because of chocolate, and now I'm realizing I'm trying to reach deeper meditative states, and when I'm eating a lot of chocolate, it's not helping my mind at all, and I'm gonna have to quit eating chocolate. But we got other things. We got mangoes and papayas and bananas, so I'm happy.
Do you have those fun little apple bananas like they have in Hawaii? I love those ones, the
Oh
small
man,
guys. Oh,
there's the little finger. There's so many different kind of bananas here. It's wonderful. It really is. Yeah,
Do you have the
those
ice cream bananas? Do you know what
the
those
ice
are?
cream bananas.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. The lady fingers, and then there's the big fat purple ones, and yeah, all kinds. Forget I haven't eaten a Cavendish in forever.
Yeah.
well, Bear and I have been fantasizing and trying to plan out doing a subterranean greenhouse here that is, you know, naturally heated by the earth. And there is that famous video on YouTube. A lot of people have seen of that character in North Dakota who
Mhm.
built one that was really efficient, and he was growing full tropical fruit in the middle of the North Dakota winter. So we could easily do that here because, man, I love mango. I could live on mangoes.
Yeah.
So I want to grow mangoes and papaya and bananas. We can do it here, right? Just using Earth's natural warming element.
Yeah,
Uh,
two riffs on that. One is I went to visit Paul Wheaton, the kind of wacky, crazy permaculturist in Montana,
oh yeah.
and he's really into his big machines, and he dug out this grotto that was like, you know, maybe 50 feet across, and he was planting a lemon tree in the middle of it. And he's like, I think we can be able to grow lemon trees here just by working with the earth and shaping it and having this south facing. I don't know how that project's ended up, but you definitely got a lot warmer creating a natural grotto. I think on 3 sides it was earth. It was almost like a subterranean thing, except for that it was open. The other is Jerome Osentowski in above Basalt, Colorado. Uh, God, this was years ago. I went to do his food forest workshop, and at that time he had a 22-year-old fig tree that he had gotten from Austin, Texas. I mean, this thing is a huge tree just loaded with figs, and he had all kinds of tropicals. He was doing it with greenhouses, um, not necessarily the subterranean, but he also loved taking saunas. So that was actually his lifestyle, was a part of a heating source for it. So, there's a lot you can do. It's wonderful. I recommend people getting started. Start with whatever grows naturally there, because that's going to be the easiest and hardiest. And then, you guys have a lot of experience. So yeah, playing around with mango trees is totally possible for you, but don't try to do that. It's like when people, I teach them a lot about home medicine. I'm like, start with the coughs and the colds and the fevers, and let's save trying to treat cancer for a couple of years from now.
And just start with a few species with medicinal plants. You don't need a lot. Just get to know them really well. And there's some that are very versatile for a lot of things. So you don't need a lot of varieties.
Yeah. I think people overlook the local species a ton. Like acorns is one of the most no-brainer. They're everywhere. I mean, they really literally grow everywhere. They're a wonderful food source. They were the staple for almost all of the indigenous peoples in the Americas. Easy to harvest and easy to process, delicious. In the Southwest, you've got the mesquite beans, a little bit more of an intense flavor, but again, just a really fantastic calorie crop. When I first started, I know when I first started 25 years ago, I was sort of in the apple, banana, orange box, which, you know, you got to get out of that and start looking at like, oh my God, let's see here, Central Texas at the time, like mulberries and peaches and pecans, and there's all kind. Look at what grows locally, um, and yeah, local nurseries, real local legitimate nurseries, and organic gardening groups will be able to clue you in on that.
Yeah, going backpacking helps. Like when we backpack up in the wilderness, we go up to Raspberry Lake where there's just wild berries everywhere because they're very plentiful up here during the summer. And it's like, wow, man, look at all these wild raspberries and blackberries. And I mean, we have blackberries coming out of our ears here that just pop up. They can be quite invasive. And then like the
Painful.
stinging nettle
Yeah.
is plentiful here, and that's extremely nutrient protein rich. Yeah, there's a gentleman on the private platform here. We have this private membership platform, and we have a whole wildcrafting section on there. And there's a guy who in Oregon who's quite a regular on there, who's sharing he's just like living off and he lives kind of outside of Eugene, like in a city, but he just goes and wildcrafts every day.
Yeah.
And it's just living off the land in a town. It's amazing what you can, it's amazing that we all know like how to use these apps on our phone and how to tie into Facebook or whatever we're using, and like it's like second nature to do anything technological now, but we don't know what's growing in our own front yard.
Yeah, and there is food and medicine everywhere. It's really everywhere. One of the other wonderful and easy ways to start getting a bunch of genetics, because another thing, if as this thing starts to deteriorate, seeds like disappear, right? I don't know if y'all remembered in 2020, think back to 2020 and you'll know how to prepare for 2025, right? So one thing I do, and I honestly, I'm still like, hey, universe, I want my house now. Like I've been renting for a while, which has been sort of frustrating, but it's been very good. I've been creating all kinds of content about what do you do when you have no space and no room and whatever. And yeah, I still wildcraft a lot. I also guerrilla garden a lot and support my local farmers and all that. But another thing I do is every other month I host a plant and seed swap party. And I put out flyers. Here, this community connects via like 20 different Facebook groups. So I get on there and post notices, and then I've got a little email list I've been collecting. And yeah, every other month, the third Saturday of the month from 9 to 11 a.m. over at Simple Greens Cafe. And it's on the odd months. So the January, March, May, July, show up with your plants and your seeds, and people show up and they bring all kinds of stuff because you two know, it's but like one tomato, you've got 100 seeds in one tomato, right? There's life is so abundant, and people show up all the time. Like this last one, I just hosted it a couple of weeks ago, and somebody showed up with these trees. They're called canepas, and they had just this like 12 canepa trees, and a bunch of people took some. We planted some there, and then I I end up feeling it's almost like you know how there's like an animal shelter and you have dogs and cats you got to give away. Well, I end up with all these plants I end up giving away. I've kind of got a plant shelter going on. It's wonderful, you know.
Yeah.
And you know, so some friends, neighbors of mine who don't come, I'm like, hey, you know, and they love it. You know, I'm giving them this canopa tree, and you know, and the 2 months before that, somebody showed up with a whole bunch of prickly pear. It was amazing. I love prickly pear.
Love
Plant.
prickly pear.
We've got
Yes.
a pretty good network up here. We, because we did permaculture and master gardening certification at Oregon State, which we did just for the heck of it, even though we're already doing it for a long time. They do have good programs, and they have exchanges a few times a year, just like that, and rent out big halls. And there's just amazing varieties and amounts of things. And
Yeah.
you know,
So
we're teaching outreach programs too with them, and then we all kind of take turns, you know, donating time and you know, where they grow things there and everything. So yeah, if people can, if there's not something already, if you can see it upon yourself to get a little steering committee to organize a group, it's not that bad, you know, not that hard. You know, we started a permaculture group here out on the coast, and you know, people do show up. So good way to do it.
Isn't it amazing in
yep.
modern times where we're supposedly at the apex of our civilization, that scarcity is the common denominator in most people's lives? And what
Yeah.
you're showing here is that naturally, and this is what it's like my big thing I champion when I talk about decentralization and Cordal and this, you know, the stuff we're doing on the technology side, but decentralized, as we look to nature. Nature is inherently abundant and inherently decentralized. And like, as you were saying, one tomato can provide enough seeds for a whole town to propagate a million more tomatoes. I mean, can you get any more just like in your face abundant? And
Well, I grow these big squashes. They're called calabasas, right?
oh, I
And these
love
are the
those. Yeah.
most dead simple, easy things to grow, right? And I found that they really like growing on a fence line versus the ground. So I'll grow them on the fence, on both fence lines, both neighbors on either side, and some of them are on my side and some of them are on their side, and that's theirs, you know. And they get these big gigantic, you know, calabasas out of it, and I'm like, yes, please eat the calabasa. They're like, no, it's your plant. I'm like, no, it's your calabasa, you know. And you break open one of those things, I mean, thousands of seeds, right? You know, so it
I
I
is
met
just
this
abundant.
I met this really cool guy. So I was back in North Carolina in the Appalachia last week in the hill country outside of Asheville. And by the way, they have like insane thousands of acres burning right now. So when I was there, 10 miles from us, wildland fires started up, and we were getting heavily chemtrailed. It was really dry and super windy. And I thought I was going back east and was going to have some humidity because we're starting to get into spring. It was like the
Mhm.
first day of spring when I was there. And now they've erupted in a full like complex of forest fires, and South and North Carolina is all burnt, excuse me, burning right now. And because, you know, we know that they're messing with the atmosphere and the chemtrails and stuff, and they're drying out the forest. But, and I think a huge problem is, of course, is the forest management issue, and just the fact the soil is dead and those trees are weakened. But there was this kid I met, Cole, shout out to Cole, Barefoot Appalachia is what he goes by. And he's doing what you kind of briefly mentioned is renegade guerrilla planting. So he's like, he's like in his early 20s, and he's basically like Johnny Appleseed. So he's going and he's renegade planting fruit trees in the national forests there. And he's actually grown pretty big on social media. You can check him out on Instagram. And the Forest Service has been trying to capture him and kick him out.
Of course they are.
And the whole thing, though, is about like, why I bring this up is like, you know, you look back to the indigenous cultures and, you know, what we know now about the Amazon being actually a massive garden, right? And it is actually up to us to work with nature as the divine gardeners of this realm, as the caretakers of the stewards of this place, to bring that, to help engage with that abundance, right? It's a two-way street, like we talk about with Thinking in Destiny. And so it's really cool that I was with all these young adults in their 20s that get this and are out doing this stuff. And imagine if we had that really rich biodiversity in these forests that are remediating the soil, that are, you know, replenishing it would be a lot harder for fallen power lines to start these wildfires.
Yeah. Sally Fallon and again Joel Salatin, we were hanging out one time and Sally is like, we're living in a time that is the natural selection of the wise. And it's gonna be a painful period, but those of us who make it through this, I really, really am very, very hopeful about the future because we have, our medicines are way, way stronger than their toxins. And there are so many of us that have such incredible solutions. And there is
Absolutely.
there's
And
such a
silver
will.
lining in all that we
Yeah.
see going on, just like the eggs, it's inspiring a lot of people to go out and get their chicks. And the next level of any kind of orchestrated scarcity is going to inspire more people to actually get their hands dirty and get in the soil too. It's already getting pretty trendy, but it's still more what I see online, more armchair sort of discussions rather than people actually, getting their hands in the dirt. So I think that's coming.
Yeah.
Yeah.
From being in this business of trying to get people to grow food and become self-reliant. I mean, the food supply has been devoid of nutrients and loaded with toxins for decades now, right?
Mhm.
Like there's a reason right there, especially if you're a mom with kids, right there. But people don't respond to that. And after 20 years of trying to get people to grow, and I've tried everything, it's a good crisis is what's going to take it. I
Yeah.
think that's just the reality of it,
Another thing that's really overlooked is just doing sprouts in your kitchen sink.
Mm-hmm.
We
Yeah.
have buckets of seeds, and you can be in the middle of winter living anywhere, and as long as you have a little bit of water, you have a fresh supply of alive greens or microgreens if you want to let them go a little bit longer. Anybody can do that, whether you're in the city or out in the country. And we grow a lot here, but we always have our sprouts going inside.
I've got a whole thing. People often ask me about, what do I do? I'm in a condominium, an apartment. I
Mhm.
have a whole list of things that you can
Yeah.
do, but I always say this. I say, look, when you put your mind and your heart into wanting something, like, I want to grow my own food. I live in a 2-bedroom, a condominium on the 15th floor, or whatever it is, right? Universe, please help me figure out how to do this, right? And the universe will. And I tell this story about years ago, I was trying to figure out how can I help more people? What are some more ideas? So there's the greens and the herbs and the in the windowsill and maybe having quail, you can produce eggs, and some people actually raise rabbits inside. Uh, and then I busted my son for growing psilocybin in the closet. And after we dealt with that as parents, I'm like, oh yeah, and you can grow mushrooms in a closet. And so when you ask the universe for help, it will deliver help to you. You just gotta be open-minded that it's gonna come in any direction.
And even psilocybin has some medicinal value.
I absolutely. It's not my medicine. I've really tried. I've
Mhm.
really tried, and it is not my medicine. I really wanted to do all that stuff, but yeah, not me. Anyway, yeah, but I mean, you can grow people. There's these wonderful little kits now. You buy just a log and spray it with water, and
Yep.
in a couple of weeks you got mushrooms coming out, and they refruit several times, and you don't need a lot of sunlight or anything for it. So there really are a lot of solutions out there.
Microgreens too are very simple, and you get those microgreen kits that with their own light, you just put it right in your kitchen.
That'll be good for one half of a salad after 2 weeks.
Well,
you
yeah,
need to build a little thing in your backyard and have trays, and then you go into production. But those little kits are kind of cool. But I look at them, it's like, well, that's like a mouthful of sprouts.
Especially
well,
for you, Bear. I've seen your salads.
Yeah.
I'll have a quart-sized jar going every now and I find after a while I get tired of sprouts, but I go through cycles and then
Yeah.
I love them.
Yeah.
Yeah, and yeah, you're not going to be able to produce as much living in an apartment. They're also coming up with some pretty unique, and I tend to avoid the higher tech stuff because the more tech there is, the more things there are to break, and the more dependent you still are on the system. But I found that it's a really good bridge for people who are, a little bit more high tech. And so there's some really great things like the Let Us Grow Tower, where people might actually one of my the editor for the Grow Network. She has one in her house and she just loves it. And for her, you know, by herself, it's plenty of salad and it's producing a lot.
Well,
I
Bear and I
really,
often mention this place in Pasadena, California, that is a full like commercial grow basically on what, Bear, like how many square feet? I mean, it's
Oh, it's amazing.
insane.
I'm going
The
to see if I can find it
the
online here real quick.
density that of the growing, and yeah, they do everything. They go vertical, right?
is that
They're
the
They
Darvis family or,
We've
I don't
talked
remember.
about it years ago on Alfacast, and it's just phenomenal to see what they're putting out in just such a tiny little suburban plot, you know?
Postage side stamp. I've seen that, yeah, and they've grown a
Yeah.
tremendous amount. I've actually just got a video we're putting out on. We went to visit this woman in Phoenix, Arizona. Same thing, you know, she's just got this tiny yard. She's producing so much she sells it on Sundays at the farmers market.
Yeah.
You know, like it
That's what I'm
really.
noticing with the food forest is, you know, we're told in an orchard, everything should be evenly spaced out and you need plenty of room for the soil to, you know, not deplete the nutrients. And then you go look at just a wilderness area of a real forest. Is everything just perfectly plotted out and spatial? No, it's dense because you've got all the layers, right? We talk about the 7 layers or whatever in a food forest. And so, yeah, it's just so fun to see how much density you can get in such a small space. And that's something else I recommend to people that are getting into homesteading. It's like, don't feel like you need to get all this acreage. It's good. I mean, you can get the land, but don't feel like you need to grow and all that. Find a compact, you know, 1/8 of an acre, if that, 1/16 of an acre, and really that's where you should garden, right? And like keep it condensed and compact so you can control it, be on top of it, not get overwhelmed at first. And then same with your food forest. Start with a really small plot.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think having, I might tell people my first gardening story when you know, we freaked out, we're gonna go get food, and my husband, his grandmother, Nanny. Now she was born South Texas, you know, knee high to a grasshopper. She's following her parents around, agricultural community. And by the time she's a mature woman, she has an acre garden, which she's managing very well because she's been doing it her entire life, right? And so, yeah, he's like, well, okay, well, I'll plow you up an acre. I had an acre of weeds and frustration. Really, you know, 100 square feet. I spent a couple of years in Colorado. They only have one growing season in Colorado. I mean, you do your best to extend it
Mhm.
on either end. And I just had 100 square feet raised bed garden that I recommend people, especially beginning, to do. And I produced so much produce in that it carried me through the summer. I was giving away, you always, if you have 2 squash plants, you're giving away squash. Um, and well, something just happened with the
There's
video.
screen sharing here, this
Oh yeah.
place.
Oh my
See,
God, that's so much food right there. Yeah.
yeah, that's
Yeah.
the
And people
urban
got,
homestead.
I couldn't believe it was like 100 square feet, and I had stuff frozen, I had stuff dried, I had stuff canned. I mean, just 100 square feet can produce a huge amount.
Yeah, yeah. It's amazing, like nature actually really, we've been tricked into thinking nature, once again, it's like depletes itself. It takes, and actually it loves density. It loves more and more life, right? Like,
Yeah.
so the more that you can compress that life together, I feel, as long as you do it in a harmonious way that's thoughtful, and you're not so much doing it to get yield, you're doing it to provide an ecosystem, right? To create an ecosystem that's mirroring how nature actually works. Then the fruits that come out of that are just so abundant. And of course, not to mention, like we said in the introduction here, the pollinators, right? And all the little life that comes there, and the birds even. And like I used to trip out on the birds, and I still kind of last year I put a bunch of reflectors up to block the birds from eating all the, you know, the cherries and stuff. But I'm kind of at the point too, if you just get enough abundance in there and you get enough,
Um,
and also owl boxes and things, and bring in the birds that are predators, you know, I don't think you have to worry so much about the birds stealing your fruit. What's your thought on that as someone who lives in the tropics there?
yeah. Well, I love it here because the growth rates are so high. And if you're a person who loves to grow things, and so Stephanie Sison and Dan over at the Caribbean Agroforestry Institute, I love to spend time at their place, and like we'll plant 5 or 10 trees, fast growing, what they would normally call weed trees, in this one little area around this one little tree that we ultimately want. Like it might be a hardwood or it might be some significant fruit producing tree. But then the other ones that grow up, we just chop them back and drop them on the ground. It's called
Yeah,
chop and drop,
drop.
just
Yeah.
chop
Yeah,
and
in
drop.
Hawaii, we'd start with a papaya tree, brand new papaya tree, and in 90 days you have fruit. It's
Yeah,
incredible.
Oh,
it is incredible. Oh my
Yeah.
God, and I love bananas. So, um,
isn't it
a lot
funny
of,
though how Marjorie, how important carbon is in this whole cycle?
yeah, I know. Like,
Nefarious
let's not
carbon.
get started on like, why do you want to take carbon dioxide out? Like,
I want to manage
plants.
my carbon footprint. I
Oh
still
my
see all these
God.
permaculture websites and, influencers talking about their carbon footprint.
How about these big government programs where they have these pipelines that are taking carbon out of the atmosphere?
Insane.
It's part of the,
What's
yeah,
That's
that'll,
got to be something real
Well,
dark going on behind that one.
Marjorie, you mentioned to me outside the show, you're interested in getting more into to Walter Russell from
Mhm.
listening to us and stuff. And Bear can explain how important carbon is from the perspective of Walter Russell.
I can do it very simply even without, and I do want to get more into Walter Russell, but I know that when I go up to a plant and you can smell the plant, right? And then if you cup your hands around the leaves of the flower or the fruit or whatever it is, and you exhale on it and then you smell it, that plant, almost all plants respond to that. Like they love carbon and they love carbon dioxide. It's just a fun thing to do sometimes, especially the aromatics, they really respond. I mean, you can interact that way. Like carbon
Yeah.
is,
Well,
yeah.
we live in a carbon octave. Walter Russell, explained how all the periodic table of elements are grouped in octaves, and the fifth octave, which is entrance through hydrogen. If you go through ancient alchemy, you understand the hydrogen element is the fire element, which is where pure consciousness has an idea to manifest it within our realm. So we get into the fifth octave through hydrogen. And then it goes through carbon, which is the most stable element of the 7 tonal fields within that octave. So, that's where we play. We're manifesting on the carbon octave. This is our realm. So, again, no mistake or coincidence that there are dark forces trying to remove us from the building blocks of who we are in the first place.
I really am very hopeful though. I mean, we really are moving into a new age.
Oh,
And
absolutely.
I feel, I mean, I've been a meditator my entire life, and it just seems like just in the last couple of years, things are, accelerating, or my spiritual growth is, just multiplying. So there's definitely a shift going on in the planet. And I don't see, I mean, yeah, I mean, there's going to be a lot of kicking and screaming, and,
And,
something that
also,
dies usually is pretty violent.
which you describe as far as going into a new age, that's also happening inside of us. So it's very important for people to remember that our bodies are the most powerful mechanism for transmutating poisons into useful things or disposing of them in the first place. So, all this that we talk about, we don't want people to get really paranoid about, we talk about chemtrails, the microplastics and everything else. And, it's not a good deal, but we, with our own inner development, have the ability to overcome any of that and not be victimized by it as well. Because again, there's no technology that even comes close to the human body because it is a microcosm of the entire universe, and there is no synthetic overlay that anybody can concoct that can possibly overcome that. And it's incumbent upon each of us individually to tap into that. And that's what's happening right now. So it's nice to talk about all these things and especially come up with solutions, but never discount ourselves individually as the ultimate solution.
Yeah, Percival also takes that, the human
Mhm.
body is just a reflection of everything, really.
Yeah.
And that being alive in a human body is, and I'm going to probably butcher this a little bit, but this is the only intersection of the 4 worlds of the physical, the form, the life, and the light worlds. And the intersection is the human body. So when you die, you don't have access to the same kind of things you do when you have a human body. So it's like the human body is, yeah, it's amazing. We have so much more to learn too. It's very, very exciting. I'm, like I said, I'm really hoping to get to live another 30 to 50 years or more because there's so much more I want to learn.
Yeah, that's one thing that we always stress is like this place where we are right now and in this sacred vesicle is here for a reason for our growth and our attainment towards not only higher knowledge, but a mastery, right? We are here to experience things. So that's why, we are doers. And
We're
from
doers.
Percival, he calls us literally doers in the body. Bear and I are doers. Dad Lando's a doer. Like Alfa Vedic, we're doers. Marjory, you're a doer. Like it's great to do this show and to discuss all these really interesting topics because that's a really important part coming out of the mental plane, right? And then through the psychic plane, which is the feelings and emotions, down and grounded, though. Here is where the work is done for that attainment, for our growth. So, and we see that nature reflects that with us every day because nature is working. We are here to labor too, right? Like the point of life isn't just like happiness. The point of life is to experience, and we experience through doing. So yeah, I'm glad that you got into Percival, and I just like think it's just so cool that people are waking up to this because it really ties into what Walter Russell. And I was listening to some Rudolf Steiner last night again, and I was like, oh my God, there's so much Percival there. So there's a
There,
perennial philosophy,
there,
right, going through all these people.
yeah, I'm listening to Peter Mount Shasta based on your recommendation.
Oh,
Like,
nice.
and again, there's more overlap there. And then I was really into Daskalasa, Stylianos of Teslos, the Greek mystic. I mean, really, you start to see it all. It's all being spoken in maybe a different way, but it's all essentially the same truth. So,
And just as Steiner admonished the Theosophical Society that things were too complicated and the world was ready for the simple truth, and then that paved the way for the Saint Germain Foundation, who put out the same truth so simple that a child could understand. Is the way they describe it. I love delving into a lot of these texts, from all the different people and everything, but also it's borderline complicating things too much because basically the only game we're playing here is changing the way we feel and just transmuting any feelings that convey a sense of limitation or fear about anything. And that's all it is. And then, of course, the I am, which designates your Godhead at your coordinate and consciousness. So it's a pretty simple thing. But, back to farming, gardening, homesteading, it's the best way where you just get out of your brain, get all the intellectual crap, put it to the side and just, commune with nature and feel it. And, we're feeling beings, not intellectual beings. And that's where science has tried to lead us away from that simple truth by getting us into all sorts of convoluted theories and overly intellectual at the expense of just seeing the simple truths, that are right in front of our eyes all the time.
I totally agree. I know it's so humble, right? When the universe was like kind of saying, hey, you're going to get into backyard food production. I'm like, what?
Yeah.
It is so humble. I did try the breatharian thing, and I do believe that there are quite a few people that have figured out how to do that. And that ultimately in Percival's system is where you go, where you don't eat anymore. But until then, I really do enjoy good food. And I think everybody else does. You may
Yeah.
not need 3 meals a day, but 2, 1, of course. It's
Yeah.
nice.
I
Eating.
love to eat, especially being an Italian. But, that's scientifically verifiable that all of us, even the worst of us, get 70% of our nutrition direct from the atmosphere. And that's easy to explain. And, I did a series of labs on every client I ever treated over the years. And that type of testing. It's called ionization analysis, which was probably somebody who developed that system, Kerry Reams. He was considered the Tesla of botany. But in that, you discover how the molecular world is actually after effects of electricity. And when you can really evaluate that electrical line of resistance in plants or in people, you realize that it's all being precipitated directly out of the atmosphere. And eating is actually a crude form of deriving energy where you get net loss of energy. But what we do get out of it is then used to jumpstart where we get 70% of our nutrition. And if you want to go into breatharianism, it's a matter of emotional accommodation more than anything, because like myself and most of us, we're pretty emotionally attached to eating, and it's great. There's nothing wrong with that, and you can't stop eating before you're ready. But, it is a scientific fact that we don't need to consume our environment in order to survive.
Yeah, thank you. I'd seen that before. And like I said, I tried it, but I really do love a fresh picked tomato and
Oh, it's
my own
amazing.
cucumbers and my own rabbit meat and eggs and so I'm going to still keep doing the backyard food production thing for a while longer. By the way, I think Mike is going to put in the show notes. I have a free webinar for people who haven't started yet. I mean, you're listening and you two are like, you've been doing this for years and got a lot of skills. But if anybody, my niche has always been how to take somebody who has no experience, they're older, they're out of shape, and I've cherry picked the 3 easiest ways to grow food for somebody who doesn't know anything, and put them into this free webinar and show you. And I go through not only what it looks like and how to operate it, but also, the calories and the nutrition and how many servings. And so it's really inspiring for those of you that have not started growing your own food. I really recommend it. Mike's going to have a link for you in the
Well,
show notes.
yeah, it's in the show notes. And actually, if you just go to alfavedic.com/grow your own,
Oh, there you go.
that'll take you right to it as well. So Alfa Vedic, if you're listening on the audio version, it is in the show notes though, but alfavedic.com/grow your own.
Yeah. And then you've got the soil detox kit, I think also. Is that coming?
Yeah,
Did we get
I
you that?
need to add that on there. So I will, that'll be alfavedic.com/soil detox. So I'll get that added on there. Fantastic tool there, of course.
And
Yeah, I want to
just a
check
heads
that
up.
out.
Yeah, just a heads up for people. Now, we did what you were talking about, your friend did in North Carolina. We did it more as like a crowd fundraiser type to get us started, because the testing to do a before and after PFAF test is $1,000. It's a little bit of money, and then the glyphosate and the other ones, they're about $300 a pop. So, $600, $800 for every one of these tests that you're doing. And we had a really good response of people who said, yeah, I want to buy the kit. Because I want to do a lot more testing. I really believe this is working, but there's nothing like having Pace Laboratories, which is the largest certified lab in the United States, say, yeah, that's right, you did destroy forever chemicals, and we've had that once, we've had that several times. We now wanted to have a lot more data points. So anyway, just give you a heads up, it's still in a bit of a, we're working on the sales page to where it's the kit itself, but now it's more of a fundraiser type thing. But we will send you the kit, and we end up giving you a bunch of other bonuses with that, like a bunch of videos and stuff, if you do that pretty soon before we swap it out.
And if anybody is curious about whether their homegrown food is nutrient dense or not, the best test is the Brix test. It's very easy. Just to check the sugar content. Naturally nutrient dense food is got a high Brix score. And if you don't want to go that far, all you have to do is ask yourself, does this tomato actually taste like a tomato? Or does it taste like something you got in the store that doesn't even resemble that?
Yeah, I know. I talked to some of these meat and tater guys, and they're like, I hate vegetables. And I said, you probably have never eaten a vegetable. If all you've been doing is eating from the grocery store and the restaurants, you have never eaten a vegetable. That stuff isn't.
If you think about it too, so like if you were to eat a beautifully, perfectly charred, grass, fed piece of beef, that first couple bites are like, if you're into meat, it's quite succulent and amazing. But as you chew it, it just turns into like no flavor. But if you've ever eaten a truly perfectly ripe, beautiful piece of vegetable or fruit, the flavor when you're, and I'm talking just from like the culinary arts, that flavor profile maintains itself throughout the entire mastication of the material. It is such a more pleasurable experience when you're eating like really, really amazing vegetables and fruits. Just coming from like the culinary background. So if I always laugh when like the carnivores are like, I'm like, you're missing out. I know there's like a whole carnivore versus vegan thing and stuff. And like Bear and I are localvores. Like we're all about
Yeah, there you
balanced,
go.
seasonal eating. We're supposed to be eating according to our locality. I talked about this in North Carolina. And according to what is the season of what's coming out and what our body needs, according to how we're composting ourselves, our inner terrain, and like what we're going through, whether it's winter, you should be eating completely different in winter versus summer.
Yeah,
And this is common sense,
yeah.
but people get on
Yeah,
these diets where I'm just going to eat a ribeye every day.
yeah.
It's like,
I've experienced that pretty dramatically. Like when I was in Colorado, I way more wanted pork and beef and fat, and they had some wonderful fruits and vegetables. I didn't mind that at all, but I really wanted those heavier foods. And since moving to the tropics, like I'm, really chicken, fish, rabbit, more of the lighter stuff. And I find myself wanting more of the fruits and actually vegetables are not really as big of a thing here. It's interestingly. So if you are in tune with what's going on, you will notice big changes. And I've been very fortunate in this lifetime to be able to live in a lot of different places and experience it directly. I guess one constant for me is butter. Like I love butter in every bioregion.
mm.
In fact, like I'm looking to manifest a dairy because at first I used to say I'm not going through the apocalypse without chocolate, but we've had that conversation. I get chocolates available, but now it's butter. I'm not going through the apocalypse without
I
butter.
think raw butter is one of the most healing things for our body possible.
Thank you. I love it when somebody else agrees with my viewpoint.
Yeah.
I used to
Oh,
get,
and interesting, there's a raw dairy in the central part of the state here. And of course, during the bird flu, they had their milk tested and tested positive for bird flu, which of course doesn't exist. So they tried to shut them down, but they're back in business again. It's just amazing how everything that sustains life is attacked.
Yeah,
I used to get worried, and I know Bear and I used talked about this all the time, the bioaccumulation of radiation from like Fukushima in dairy, and now I'm questioning that whole deal. I'm questioning nuclear radiation. I'm questioning all that stuff. And that's another amazing, I think, time we're living in as we're questioning all these things of what supposed mainstream scientism has made fact and dogma and really caused a lot of fear. Like I remember being so worried the world was going to end after Fukushima. We're all going to be radiated to death. And maybe, the radiation, Walter Russell talks about radiation, that is a thing, but I do think that the radiation, like it's funny, you hear about Chernobyl and how it's abundant there with all sorts of life. And supposedly we're not supposed to go there. So I don't know.
Well, I agree with you about questioning everything. I really, starting with Percival, and I dipped into, I was mentioning before we got on with Nicole Murphy and her
Yeah.
explanation of the sky clock. And the hardest part of that is unlearning, and so much, like, oh my God, the schooling and the movies and the songs and everything. I'm not a flat earther by any means, but it's been astonishing the questions that they bring up. Like, well, hey, yeah, why didn't I ever notice that before? Like, duh. I don't know. Now I don't know what shape the planet or is or isn't or where we're at. I'm kind of leaning toward that toroidal model, but there's
All we
so
need to
much.
know
Yeah.
is 100% of what we've been taught is an absolute falsehood.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah.
Yeah, and we don't have to argue about what shape the earth is, and let's just all agree that we've been lied to. So let's go into a discovery process and have fun with it.
Yeah. Yeah. In our own history. Oh my God, there's so much. It's
Oh boy.
actually a wonderful time to be alive for this new discovery. It's new to us, right? And we will figure it out. I mean, truth is accessible. That's actually one of the first things of Steiner that I was reading was he has a book on Atlantis and Lemuria. And I
Yeah.
never finished the book, but in the very beginning, he said, how do we know that this, is true? And he says anybody can know it's true because you can train yourself to access basically the Akashic records. And then he referenced another book where he taught you how to do that. So then I went on to that book and never finished the Atlantis and Lemuria one. But I mean, there is an absolute truth and we can find it. And that's really just the term apocalypse just means lifting of the veil. Like we're really starting to see now. And what
And when
a
you
wonderful time. Yeah.
you know, and that knowing doesn't come from an intellect, it comes from a resonance in your heart. How do you know when you're in love? You just kind of know it. You can't prove it, but it's like that with everything. Your heart knows the truth. It's our real thinking organ, and we have to go back to the unification of our heart in order to get the mind back in control. It has its place, but it's that part of the scientific distortion that we've been led into. So, and I think that's where these times are leading us.
Yeah, there is a sort of a resurgence of romanticism, which I love. I just finished another Dickens novel, Bleak House, going to do a Substack on it. And that period of romanticism coming out of like Goethe and those great natural philosophers, we lost that when we turned really into the modern age of scientism. And there's a reemergence of romanticism. And we see that in flat earth. We see that in questioning everything from cellular biology to the nature of the realm, and people talking about the elementals and cryptids and all of this stuff. I think that that's important because it's bringing back imagination. It's bringing back the wonder, the fantasy of this place. And I'm a huge fan of that era. So I'm with you on that, Marjorie. When we hang out together at these events, isn't it fun hanging out with all these people just questioning and enjoying the experience of
Bringing up
questioning?
little things you hadn't noticed before, and whether you agree with them or not, you're like, okay, can I observe? Yeah, I love Anarch. It's just this wild, wacky mix. And honestly, some of it I'm pretty sure is not true. But being open to a lot of perspectives. Yeah, it's a wonderful time, really wonderful time.
So,
Thread I was going to go
Marjorie,
on, but yeah.
what haven't we? This has been a great discussion, and thank you for being generous with your time. What haven't we discussed yet that you'd like to cover?
Oh, I was going to kind of tease a little bit about since this is a more friendly audience, I've been starting to work, possibly going to be doing some stuff with the MAHA movement, the Make
Oh,
America
yeah,
Healthy.
that's right.
Yeah.
I wanted to ask you about that.
That's kind of we're still sort of in the behind the scenes negotiate, like what does that look like kind of thing. And I have to say, I was actually inspired by Joel. He and I were talking in the green room a lot, and I'm like, Joel, come on, dude, USDA for real, you. And he said, you know what? He said at first when they approached him, he said, no, don't want anything to do with it. And that was actually my initial reaction because it's all just political masturbation, honestly, and he said, yeah, but then his son said, Dad, you've been fighting these people, talking about these people, trying to make a change with these people for all these years, and now they're reaching out a hand. You really should take it, So I'm sort of in that position of, I certainly don't want to ever be in a position where I'm beholden to them in any way, where I would have, where what I would say would be affected. Like I still want to be exactly who I am and say what I think. But fundamentally, my whole stance has been, let's make America healthy again. Let's make the whole world healthy again.
So, what's your insights into the MAHA folks there? Are we on the up and up? I mean, I hear some things that I like to hear, and then I also see some things happening that seem atrocious. So,
Yeah.
what do you think's going on there?
I know before you got to be careful about politicians before the election, right?
Right.
Before the election, it looked so hopeful, like Thomas Massey might get in there and Joel was going to join forces and RFK was talking about all this really good stuff. And then after he gets in, like all that other stuff just gets sacrificed. Trump is now talking about 500 billion for an AI thing to generate a vaccine to kill you in what, 48 hours now? Or can we say that? I don't know if I'm going to be in trouble for that. Anyway, and then the FDA red dye is now something they might do 2 years from now. And I'm like, so that's why my initial reaction was like, no, you guys, that was all just a political grandstanding, and you're but people that are inside say no, that RFK's real intention is to help people be healthy. And you've got to realize that he's dealing with the swamp. So I don't know at this point in time. I really don't. I know that I'm going to keep on doing what I'm doing, which is to help people be healthy. I mean, really, the fundamental of health is very simple on the physical level. It's, increase your nutrition and reduce your toxicity, right? There's lots of other layers and complications and emotional and mental and whatever factors, right? But you've got to hit that basic layer first if you really want to
And don't wait for
make
the
people better.
government to fix it for you. That's the
Exactly.
thing. And I think
Yeah.
that's the one danger of the new administration is a lot of people just get complacent like everything's okay right now. So what you're doing out there, what we're doing on our end is, roll up your sleeves, get to work. Don't wait for anybody. Nobody can do it
I
for
was
us.
always joking around that MAHA, actually, it's like I'm thinking of Nelson from Simpsons, more like ha ha, because
Yeah,
yeah,
somebody
like
made a comment on my Substack group, and she was like, "You know what we call MAGA over here?" And I think she was in Greenland or something. She goes, "Make America go away." I
I
don't
don't know if
know.
you
well,
guys can read my hat there. It's Make America Grateful Again.
yeah,
Oh, I
that's
like that.
great. I
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
that. Yeah, you know what? I will say this, and I went out back east. You travel a lot as well, Marjorie, and you see the trends. And I will say that I think the MAHA movement is a reflection of the growing consciousness towards health. And I see it, it was like this crazy contrast between going into Charlotte and seeing that airport with all the fast food and junk and Dunkin' Donuts and people low vibration as a reflection of where that place is. And then Salt Lake City, which is this they have an updated airport, and there was actually like organic markets there and local
Mhm.
restaurants that not necessarily farm to table, but more like salads. And I got like an acai bowl, and there was like like fresh fish. And Seattle airport's gotten a lot better. San Francisco airport's gotten lot better. So the West is kind of leading the way, but we're seeing in the general trend of health and wellness in America moving in the right direction. And I think that is a reflection towards why we have an RFK Jr. in the power position that he's is at least it's reflective of the general consciousness of, whoa, we need to fix this.
I agreed. Yeah. I used to say, hey, instead of all these debates and stuff, we ought to see what politician who can grow the best tomato. And we make our decision based on that,
I love
and,
that.
and RFK definitely, he definitely exemplifies health in terms of his physical body and how he's taking care of himself. Whereas I don't see anybody else in Washington that looks very healthy at all. Um, and I think there is a movement, and it's partly because like 24-year-olds getting colon cancer, 21-year-old having a heart attack, like this younger, like these are things that 20-year-olds, 30-year-olds should not be dealing with. And it has to do that there's been absolutely no nutrition in the food since 2000. Like
Yeah.
over the last 100 years, it's gone from being pretty good down to absolutely nothing.
I
Like,
I have some very personal backstory about that individual, and there are good intentions there. I can't um, this
What individual?
the one we've been talking about. I can't
Oh,
disclose because of certain confidentialities, but
understood. Yeah.
there's good people there.
Well, here's a whole nother, even a bigger picture. So if you listen to like Cliff High, he believes in the SOC, the self-operating collective, and Dick Swear is talking about that there are people behind the scenes that have been working on the monetary system for a long time. And you have to believe that there are some good forces at work here. But man, by and large, the destructive, negative, even we use the word evil, definitely have the upper hand. Um, I mean, I still don't know what to make of Trump. Is he just an act? Well, he's clearly an actor, right? But is he playing on both sides of a fence or what? I don't know. You know, it's really interesting, and
Yeah.
I'll be
There,
able to tell from MAHA by what they actually do, right? Because I know that I'm genuine. I know what I'm doing, and I know what I'm contributing. And actually, I can tell you another quick story. Is for years, I would go to New York, and I was one of like this group of 50 authors, and we got to pitch really, really big producers, and it was a very expensive thing, of course, but I wanted to, you know, wanted to get this message out. So like the editor of Oprah magazine, or, you know, the head producer for 60 Minutes or Good Morning America. I mean, it was that level, right? It was really, really high level. And you only got like a 3-minute pitch per producer. And honestly, those producers can look at you and in about 30 seconds, they've made up their mind. It's kind of like speed dating. Um, and I never, ever, ever could jive with any of that media as much as I tried. And I went back several times, you know, and now in retrospect, I look back and I'm like, yeah, because I'm operating at a, you know, frequency or a level or an intent, you know, an intention, that's one thing. And now that we know with the P. Diddy and the Epstein and all that stuff, what level that they're operating at. And I'm like, well, thank you, guiding spirits, for never letting me get involved with that. You know, that was pretty discouraging at the time. So we'll see based on their,
there's,
I'm willing to entertain them and engage them and see if what the intent is, because I know what I do. And if it matches, then we'll find a match, you know?
There's great historical references that have been documented. One is proves that George Washington was very connected and had associations with the Brotherhood behind the scenes, we'll say. And during the signing of the Declaration of Independence, they were in a closed, locked chambers. And a mysterious, this is in a congressional library, the whole event documented, and anybody can read about it probably online. A mysterious stranger appeared within the chambers because they were procrastinating about signing these documents. There's a lot of fear about the reprisals. And this individual, who has been identified as Saint Germain, who just appeared out of thin air, and who is responsible for the formation of this country. It was first attempted in Europe, but America has a particular destiny because it is where mankind first appeared within this realm in the first place. And when he admonished the founding fathers in the chamber there, they all found their courage and signed the document. So the point is there are what's been described as tens of thousands of individuals who have gone through embodiments many times, just like we are here, who have attained their mastery and are no longer bound, you know, by the materialistic portion of this realm, the ascension, whatever you want to call it. And they need people to work through. So all of us that are growing our awareness and opening ourselves and asking for help, because they can't do it for us, but they need us to invite them in. So when we talk about Trump or anybody else, you can look at folks that are actors, they're all actors, but they can be used. So we don't know exactly what role people are playing. You know, I don't like the fact that we're bombing people that are trying to prevent genocide in different parts of the world, and, you know, all the shenanigans going on. But, you know, there are higher powers at work, just like within nature. And these higher powers will win. And Saint Germain famously said one time, he said, I never would have put my hand to the task unless I knew our victory was already attained. And that was in direct reference as far as America as the heart of the world and enlightening the entire world from what we're all participating in right here. So I have more than hope. It's just more up to us as far as how much turmoil we want to go through before we get there.
Yeah, to go back to backyard food production. I know it's so humble,
Yeah.
but I've always felt that the more people that are able and resilient, the easier the transition is going to be.
Yeah,
So that's why I keep
exactly.
doing it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Hey, this has been a beautiful conversation. Thanks so much, Marjory, for giving us your time. I know you're super busy. I did add the other link in the show notes below. So that would be alfavedic.com/soil detox for that. And the other one would be alfavedic.com/grow your own. So check those two out. They're going through the Grow Network. Thanks for all that you've brought to this world. Interesting. You made your million and, you could have gone off and to the sunset, but you decided to do the work and be of service to humanity. And you're quite inspiring to all of us. So thanks,
Yes.
Marjory.
And thank you for bringing some Puerto Rican sunshine to us today in this rainy day here in the Pacific Northwest.
Y'all come out and visit sometime now. That'd be fun.
Oh, I'd love to. Love to.
All right. Thank both of you too. You're really doing amazing work, and yeah, it's really important. And I very much appreciate, I just appreciate the relationships. It's been wonderful.
Thank you.
Yeah, let us know if we can help you in any other way, and let's stay connected. And then I'll see you on the next Percival call, hopefully.
Yeah, that's next Wednesday. All right, guys. We'll
Okay.
talk to you later.
Peace. Hey guys, thanks everybody for joining us today. Remember to get outside, get your feet in the dirt, go plant something, go show Mother Nature some love. She'll show it right back to you. That's how we end every Alfacast, Marjory, because it's so true. Love you
Repetition's a good
guys.
thing.
We're taking next week off for spring break, getting caught up on some stuff, going camping with the fam. We'll be premiering, though, an interview Bear did on Beyond Terrain. So join us on the live chat for that premiere next Thursday, and then we'll see you the following week. Same bat time, same bat channel. Love you.